My name is Harrison Cole, 64 years old. I've buried my wife, raised a son, and built a life with my own two hands. But nothing, not war, not grief, not age, ever prepared me for the day my own child stood beside the woman who'd destroy everything we'd built.
Did golden streaks across Cherokee Lake, where 200 guests stood frozen beneath white magnolia arrangements. I touched my burning cheek where Cassandra's palm had left its mark, feeling not just the sting of flesh, but the weight of every prayer my late wife Bethany had whispered for our son's future. "You're a selfish old fool, Harrison," Cassandra hissed, her $12,000 dress rustling like snake scales. "What does a widower need with a 6-bedroom farmhouse? Garrett and I are starting a dynasty. That property belongs with the young." I steadied myself against the oak table, my 64 years feeling heavier than the mountains surrounding us. Behind Cassandra, my son Garrett stood paralyzed. The boy who'd earned a Purple Heart in Iraq couldn't find courage in his own wedding reception. His eyes darted between his bride and his father like a child watching his world split in two. "That farmhouse," I said, my voice barely carrying over the string quartet, "is where your mother-in-law took her last breath in my arms, where she made me promise to protect you from people who would love you for the wrong reasons." Cassandra's perfectly contoured face twisted with contempt. "Bethany's been gone 6 years, Harrison. 6 years! Stop using a ghost to control the living." The crowd gasped. Even Garrett's military brothers shifted uncomfortably. But I simply reached into my blazer and withdrew my phone, my fingers steady despite the earthquake in my chest. "You know what, Cassandra? You're right about one thing. It's time to stop living with ghosts. Time to show everyone the real woman my son married." Her champagne smile cracked like thin ice. "What are you doing?" "I'm inviting a few more guests. They should arrive in about 20 minutes. As I pressed send on 3 carefully crafted messages, I watched the blood drain from Cassandra's face like water from a broken dam. She didn't know it yet, but her house of cards was built on sand, and the tide was coming in. The leather folder in my jacket, containing 53 photographs from 3 months of sleepless nights, would make sure of that. Garrett stepped forward, his voice tight with confusion. "Dad, what's happening? Who did you contact?" I looked at my son, the baby I'd taught to ride a bike on our gravel driveway, the teenager who'd cried in my arms after his first heartbreak, the soldier who'd survived Fallujah only to fall prey to a different kind of warfare, and my heart shattered like chapel glass. "The truth, son. I invited the truth to your wedding. If you've ever loved someone so much that you'd let them hate you to save them, then you understand this moment. Please hit that subscribe button because every parent watching needs to know that sometimes the hardest love is the one that lets go while holding on." Cassandra Waverly walked into my Nashville farmhouse. She didn't see the home where 3 generations had lived and loved. She saw a real estate listing that hadn't hit the market yet. And I saw the exact moment my son became her prey. January in Nashville meant unpredictable weather. Sunshine that lied about warmth, sudden rains that caught you without warning. But nothing was as unpredictable as the woman Garrett brought through my door that Sunday after church. "Dad, meet Cassandra," Garrett beamed, his whole being radiating a joy I hadn't seen since before his deployment. "Cass, this is my father, Harrison." She extended perfectly manicured fingers, her handshake calculated to seem both delicate and confident. But her eyes, those calculating green eyes, were already conducting an appraisal. They swept over the restored pine floors, cataloged the stone fireplace, measured the vaulted ceilings, and practically calculated the property tax. "What an absolutely divine estate," she purred, though her tone suggested profitable rather than divine. "Garrett mentioned you've been here since the 70s. This must be worth a fortune now with Nashville's growth." Since the 70s, as if 4 generations of bread and family history could be reduced to a real estate timeline. My grandfather built it in 1952. Different era, different values.
Oh, but imagine what it's worth now. Her laugh sounded like champagne bubbles, effervescent and empty. My girlfriend just flipped a smaller place in Franklin for $1.2 million. Garrett squeezed her hand, blind to her assessment. Cass works at the Opryland Hotel and Events, but she's studying for her real estate license. Real estate, of course. During dinner, Bethany's famous bourbon pot roast I'd spent 6 years perfecting alone, Cassandra's questions came wrapped in Southern charm but carried Yankee sharpness. "Harrison, you must get so lonely in this big old house, just you and all these memories." "The memories are good company," I said, slicing through my meat with deliberate care. "But wouldn't you a nice condo downtown be more practical? Less upkeep, smaller utility bills, and Lord knows you could probably get $2 million for this place easy." Garrett shifted in his chair. "Cass, Dad would never sell. This is home." "Oh, honey, I'm just thinking practically." She touched his hand with practiced tenderness. "Your daddy won't be young forever. Planning ahead is just smart Southern sense." Young forever? I was 64, not 84. I studied her throughout dinner, noting how she touched Garrett constantly, his shoulder, his cheek, his hand, like she was branding cattle. But when she thought I wasn't looking, something cold flickered across her features. After dinner, while Garrett was getting dessert from the kitchen, Cassandra stood by the piano, examining our family photos with unsettling intensity. "Bethany was lovely," she said, though it sounded more like a competition than a compliment. "Lung cancer, right? Such a shame. At least she didn't linger too long." Didn't linger? 18 months of chemo, radiation, and watching my soulmate fade away was not lingering? "Garrett definitely inherited her trusting nature," Cassandra continued, lifting our anniversary photo. "He sees the good in everyone, so refreshing in this cynical world." Translation: so easy to manipulate. When they left that night, Cassandra's perfume lingered like a threat. I stood in my kitchen looking at Bethany's picture on the windowsill, the one where she's laughing at the state fair, powdered sugar from funnel cake on her nose. What do I do, Beth? How do I protect our boy from something he wants to run toward? If you've ever felt that gut punch moment when you realize someone you love is in danger but won't listen, you're not alone. Subscribe right now, because sometimes our instincts are the only warning system we have, and somebody needs to hear this story before it's too late.
To Cassandra after exactly 91 days with a ring that cost his entire combat pay, and as I watched him place his mother's engagement ring in her hands as a bonus gift, I realized he wasn't just giving her jewelry, he was handing over weapons she'd use to destroy him. Valentine's Day in Nashville brought unexpected ice storms, but nothing could cool Garrett's burning enthusiasm when he burst through my door that morning, tracking mud across floors his great-grandmother had once polished daily. "I'm proposing tonight, Dad." My coffee mug slipped, brown liquid spreading across yesterday's Tennessean newspaper. "Son, it's been 3 months. When you know, you know." He pulled out 2 ring boxes, one new, one heartbreakingly familiar. "The solitaire cost everything I saved overseas, but look, I'm also giving her mom's ring, the one you gave her at Radnor Lake." Everything. 3 tours worth of hazard pay, gone. Plus Bethany's ring, the one she'd twisted during nervous moments, worn while holding baby Garrett, refused to remove even during chemo. "Garrett, please, reconsider the timeline." "I knew you'd be like this." His jaw set in that stubborn Brennan line. "You've been cold to Cass since minute 1. Cold? I'd been cautious. There's a canyon of difference. Have you discussed finances, life goals, where you'll live?" "Of course." But his eyes shifted. The same tell from when he was 8 and swore he hadn't touched the pie cooling on the counter. "We want success, family, the American dream." "And what does Cassandra's version of that dream look like?" His face darkened like thunderclouds over the Cumberland River. "Why can't you just be happy for me?" That night,
he proposed at the Hermitage Hotel's Capitol Grill, where Andrew Jackson once dined. Cassandra said yes naturally. She cried, Garrett reported later. Real tears that somehow didn't smudge her makeup. The engagement announcement came with immediate demands. April 15th wedding, Cassandra insisted. Tax day. How perfectly symbolic. When I suggested waiting until fall, maybe giving time for proper planning, Cassandra's response cut deep. Harrison, just because you're choosing to die alone doesn't mean we all have to wait. Garrett was in the bathroom. He didn't hear, but I heard, cataloged it with her other casual cruelties. Wedding planning revealed Cassandra's true appetite. She wanted Cheekwood Estate, Nashville's most expensive venue. Her dress came from a boutique where country music stars shopped. The guest list ballooned to include her networking contacts from across Tennessee's real estate world. "How are you financing this?" I asked Garrett privately. "Cass has savings and we're taking out a loan." A loan. For one day. For a performance. The revelation came during Sunday dinner in early March. Cassandra was upstairs, and her voice carried through the old heating vents like truth through lies. "No, Maverick, I can't tonight. I'm at the inheritance property. At Harrison's place. 6 weeks until the wedding. After that, we'll have everything. The old fool doesn't even have a will. In Tennessee, it all goes to the son, and what's his becomes mine." Maverick? Who the hell was Maverick? I started paying attention differently. Cassandra's phone was always face down, locked with both fingerprint and code. She had client meetings at odd hours. Her stories developed inconsistencies, small cracks that Garrett, love-drunk, never noticed. She'd mentioned working at Opryland, but her schedule never matched the hotel event calendar. She claimed to be studying real estate, but had no books, never mentioned classes. She said her family was from Chattanooga, but her accent wandered from Tennessee to Texas to somewhere vaguely Midwestern. Right now, someone you love might be wearing rose-colored glasses so thick they can't see the red flags. If this story is making your chest tight with recognition, subscribe immediately. Hit that notification bell because someone needs to hear this before they sign papers that will ruin their life. I followed Cassandra through downtown Nashville. I felt like I'd betrayed everything Bethany taught me about trust until I saw her kissing another man outside Tootsie's bar and realized the only betrayal would be staying silent while she destroyed our son. March arrived like a lamb, but I became a lion. The decision to investigate Cassandra haunted me through sleepless nights. I'd sit in Bethany's sewing room, now my office, staring at her photograph, seeking absolution. Am I protecting him or controlling him? The morning sun through her lace curtains felt like permission. Cassandra claimed to work at Opryland's event center, but my first discovery was simpler. She actually bartended at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge on Broadway, Nashville's honky-tonk heart, Tuesday through Saturday, 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. I learned this through a casual conversation with a buddy who frequented downtown. My first surveillance was March 7th, a Tuesday that felt like betrayal. I parked near the Ryman Auditorium at 1:45 a.m., feeling foolish in my F-150 among the party buses and Ubers. What kind of father stalks his son's fiancée? The kind whose gut screams danger louder than guilt whispers shame. At 2:13 a.m., Cassandra emerged from the employee exit. Instead of walking to her white Lexus, how did a bartender afford a Lexus? She waited. A lifted Chevrolet Silverado pulled up, and a man jumped out, tall, broad, wearing a Vanderbilt Medical Center scrubs. The kiss wasn't friendly. It was hungry, desperate, possessive. My phone camera clicked 5 times before they drove away together. Dr. Maverick Hutchins, I presumed. I followed them to a high-rise condo in the Gulch, Nashville's trendy district where young money played house. They disappeared into the building together, his hand on her lower back with familiar ownership. Wednesday brought revelation number 2. Cassandra left alone, but drove to a mansion in Belmead, old Nashville money territory. Through iron gates, I watched her embrace a different man, silver-haired, distinguished, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Garrett's monthly salary. Thursday, Maverick again, same routine, same condo. Friday, she actually went to her own apartment in Antioch, probably FaceTiming Garrett, playing devoted fiancé. Saturday shattered my worst fears. A third man, younger, covered in tattoos, picked her up in a murdered-out Dodge Charger. They went to a boutique hotel near Music Row. I sat in that parking lot for 3 hours, documenting arrival time, room number, the way she laughed as he carried shopping bags from Nordstrom. 3 men. She was juggling 3 men while planning a wedding to my son. By late March, I'd mapped her pattern. Dr. Maverick Hutchins, I'd found him on the hospital website, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Sterling Rothschild, old Nashville family, owned half of Belmead, on Wednesdays. Jackson Cruz, upcoming country singer with a record deal, on Saturdays. The investigation consumed me. I bought surveillance equipment online, learned about telephoto lenses and night photography. I became someone unrecognizable, a 64-year-old farmer playing private detective, documenting a 29-year-old woman's web of deception. But every photo was ammunition. Every documented lie was a bullet that might save Garrett from a lifetime of manipulation. On March 28th, I followed Cassandra to a coffee shop in Green Hills. She met with an older woman who looked like an aged version of herself. I sat close enough to hear their conversation. The soldier boy is easiest. Damaged goods from Iraq, desperate for love, the wedding's in 2 weeks. And the others? The woman asked. Maverick thinks we're planning a summer wedding in Aspen. Sterling's arranging a ceremony at his family's vineyard in June. Jackson's the wild card, unpredictable, but his tour starts in May, so he'll be gone. You're playing with fire, baby girl. Cassandra laughed, a sound like ice cracking. Men are simple when they're in love. Show them what they want, be what they need, and they'll give you everything. If your hands are shaking right now, if you're thinking of someone who might be getting played like this, don't wait. Subscribe and share this story immediately. Sometimes, the most loving thing we can do is show someone the ugly truth before it becomes their beautiful disaster. Fool's Day. I had documented 53 instances of Cassandra's betrayal, but the cruelest joke was the video I recorded of her trying on wedding dresses with 3 different men on 3 consecutive days, each time crying the same rehearsed tears of joy. The evidence folder grew heavier each day, weighted with more than just paper. It carried the mass of anticipated grief. April 1st should have been about pranks and laughter. Instead, I sat at Bethany's kitchen table organizing photographs with the methodical precision of a prosecutor building a capital case. Each image labeled, time-stamped, cross-referenced. Cassandra with Maverick at his condo. Cassandra with Sterling at charity galas. Cassandra with Jackson at music industry parties where Garrett would never belong. But April 3rd broke something inside me. I'd followed Cassandra to a jeweler in Franklin, expecting another rendezvous. Instead, I watched through glass as she stood alone at the counter, examining men's wedding bands. She was trying different styles, comparing prices, filling out paperwork. Through my telephoto lens, I caught the critical detail. She was placing deposits on 4 different rings. 4. My son was 1/4 of a calculated equation. That night, I couldn't eat Bethany's favorite soup, couldn't sit in her chair, couldn't watch our shows. Garrett called to discuss honeymoon plans. He wanted to take her to Ireland, where his grandmother was born. Cass loves the idea of castles, he said, says it's romantic.
Romantic. She probably had 3 other honeymoons planned. April 8th delivered the killing blow. I followed Cassandra to a law office in Brentwood. Through the window, I watched her meeting with a man in an expensive suit, signing documents. Later, I paid a paralegal $200 to tell me what she'd filed. Power of attorney paperwork, prenuptial agreements, but not for protection, for acquisition. The documents were designed to give her control over Garrett's assets if he became incapacitated. My son, who'd survived IEDs, was being prepared for a different kind of explosion. That night, I added the legal documentation to my evidence file. 53 photographs, 4 hours of audio recordings, credit reports showing Cassandra's massive debts and judgments, 3 fake nursing licenses under variations of her name, a pattern of deception so elaborate it suggested years of practice. The worst discovery came April 10th. I'd hacked into her cloud storage, forgive me, Bethany, for what I'd become, and found a folder labeled Insurance Policies. Inside were documents for all 4 men, life insurance policies where she was listed as beneficiary. Garrett's was for $500,000 taken out without his knowledge using his information from their joint wedding planning accounts. She wasn't just planning to deceive them, she was planning for their deaths. I sat in my truck outside a Nashville police station for an hour, debating whether to report her immediately. But they'd want evidence of immediate threat, and a wedding in 5 days wasn't immediate enough for overworked cops. Plus, Garrett would never forgive me for having his fiancée arrested without absolute proof of her intentions. No, this required a different kind of justice. The kind that came from public revelation, where she couldn't lie, manipulate, or disappear into another identity. April 14th, the day before the wedding, I made my final preparations. I contacted Dr. Maverick Hutchins, Sterling Rothschild, and Jackson Cruz through carefully crafted messages, each designed to ensure their attendance at tomorrow's reception without revealing the truth. To Maverick, emergency involving Cassandra Waverly at Cherokee Lake Pavilion. She's asking for you specifically. Please come immediately. To Sterling, urgent matter regarding Cassandra at Cherokee Lake near the ceremony area. She needs you here within an hour. To Jackson, Cassandra's been in an incident at Cherokee Lake Pavilion. She keeps calling your name. Hurry. I scheduled these messages to send at precisely 4:45 p.m. tomorrow during the reception. The collision of her multiple worlds would be spectacular. If your heart is racing, if you're screaming at your screen wanting to warn Garrett yourself, subscribe now and hit that bell. Because tomorrow, at a wedding by a Tennessee lake, Karma is going to be the uninvited guest who gives the most memorable toast. Don't miss what happens when love, lies, and truth collide.
That church, watching my only son promise his life to a woman who'd already sold that same promise to 3 other men, felt like watching him sign his own death warrant. But I held my peace, because the real ceremony would begin when her other grooms arrived. April 15th dawned perfect, the kind of Tennessee spring day that made you believe in redemption. Cherokee Lake sparkled like scattered diamonds, and the white dogwoods bloomed as if Bethany herself had decorated from heaven. I stood in my bedroom, adjusting the ties she'd bought me for our last anniversary, my hands steady despite the storm in my chest. The evidence folder lay thick inside my suit jacket. 53 photographs, audio recordings, legal documents. 3 text messages waited in my phone, scheduled to deploy at 4:45 p.m. precisely. I'd tested the timing twice, driven the routes myself. Maverick would arrive from Vanderbilt in 18 minutes, Sterling from Belle Meade in 22, Jackson from Music Row in 25. At the church, a small chapel Bethany and I had married in 38 years ago, Garrett stood at the altar in his dress blues, medals catching morning light. He looked like the hero he was, not the victim he was becoming. Cassandra floated down the aisle in a dress that cost more than most cars, her smile practiced to perfection. She had insisted on 2 photographers, a videographer, and a drone operator to capture every magical moment, she'd said. She'd capture more than she bargained for. During the ceremony, when Reverend Thompson asked for objections, I bit my tongue until I tasted copper. Not yet. Timing was everything. Bethany had taught me that. When to plant, when to harvest, when to let fields lie fallow. Today, I would harvest truth. The reception at Cherokee Lake Pavilion was Pinterest perfect. 200 guests, a band flown in from Memphis, and flowers that probably depleted 3 Nashville greenhouses. Cassandra worked the crowd like a politician's wife, ensuring everyone saw her as Garrett's perfect bride. At 4:30 p.m., she cornered me by the bourbon bar. Harrison, her honeyed accent disappeared, replaced by something harder, northern. We need to discuss the farm. My family's farm? Don't play stupid, old man. Garrett and I need that property. You're sitting on 200 acres of prime real estate, living alone like some hermit. It's selfish and wasteful. That land has been in my family for, I don't care if George Washington himself planted the corn. Signed it over today. Consider it your wedding gift to us. No. The slap came fast and hard, her engagement ring catching my cheek, drawing blood. The band stopped mid-song. 200 conversations died instantly. Every phone came out, recording. Cassandra! Garrett rushed over, his face cycling through confusion, embarrassment, and rage. What the hell are you doing? Your father is being unreasonable about the property, she snarled, apparently unaware that assaulting a senior citizen at her own wedding might affect her image. We deserve that farm. I pulled out my phone, checking the time. 4:46 p.m. The messages had been sent. Actually, Cassandra, you deserve exactly what's coming. I wiped blood from my cheek with Bethany's handkerchief, the one I'd carried since her funeral. In about 15 minutes. At 5:03 p.m., the first vehicle arrived, a white Silverado speeding too fast for the gravel road. Dr. Maverick Utchins jumped out, still in scrubs, his face tight with panic. Cassandra, where are you? What happened? Are you hurt? Before anyone could respond, Sterling Rothschild Bentley appeared, followed immediately by Jackson Cruz's Charger. 3 men converged on the pavilion, each frantic, each calling Cassandra's name. The wedding reception became a collision site. 200 guests watched in stunned silence as 3 strangers searched desperately for the bride. Maverick saw her first. Cass, thank God, I got the emergency message. He stopped, finally registering the wedding dress, the decorations, the groom in military dress blues. What is this? Sterling's analytical mind was already calculating. Are you married? Today? Jackson just stared. Baby, we were together 2 nights ago. You said you loved only me. If you're holding your breath right now, if you can feel this moment about to explode, subscribe immediately. Hit that notification bell hard, because what happens next will make you believe in karma, justice, and why good fathers go to war for their children. This is the moment everything changes. Stood in their own devastation while a 4th watched his new marriage dissolve like sugar in rain. But it was Cassandra's next words that revealed the true monster she'd always been. You're all so pathetically easy to fool. The silence that followed could have suffocated hope itself. 200 wedding guests stood frozen, champagne flutes suspended, cameras rolling as 3 men faced the woman who'd promised each of them forever. Maverick spoke first, his surgeon's hands trembling. Cassandra, why are you in a wedding dress? Why are these people here? Sterling's old money composure cracked like antique china. You told me you were visiting your sick aunt this weekend. You said we'd discuss our engagement when you returned. Engagement? Jackson's voice broke. You're wearing my promise ring on your right hand. We picked it out together last month. The crowd turned to examine Cassandra's hands. Sure enough, 3 different rings adorned her fingers, plus Garrett's wedding set. She was wearing promises from 4 men like trophies. This isn't what it looks like, Cassandra stammered, her carefully constructed persona fragmenting. I stepped forward, pulling the evidence folder from my jacket. Gentlemen, allow me to clarify. You've all been in relationships with the same woman. She's been engaged to each of you while marrying my son today." "That's impossible," Sterling said, but his voice suggested he already knew it was true. I spread the photographs across the gift table like tarot cards, revealing everyone's future. March 7th, Cassandra with Maverick at his condo. The image showed them in an intimate embrace. March 8th, Cassandra with Sterling at the Belle Meade Country Club. March 9th, Cassandra with Jackson at the Bluebird Cafe. Each photograph landed like a judge's gavel. Cassandra's legs buckled and she collapsed onto the manicured lawn, her dress spreading around her like spilled milk. "These are doctored," she gasped from the ground. "Harrison's always hated me. He's jealous that Garrett found happiness." Maverick picked up a photo of Cassandra in his bedroom, studying it with medical precision. "This is real. That's my bedroom. Last Tuesday." Sterling held an image of Cassandra at his family's fundraiser. "This is the steeplechase gala. You told me you were working that night." "You told me you were at a funeral," Jackson added, staring at a photo dated the same evening. The three men looked at each other, strangers united by shared betrayal. Their next exchange was surgical. "How long?" Maverick asked. 10 months, Sterling replied. 8 months, Maverick said. 6 months, Jackson added. They turned to Garrett, who stood statue still, his military bearing the only thing keeping him upright. 3 months, he said quietly. "We've been together 3 months." I pulled out my phone and played the coffee shop recording. Cassandra's voice filled the pavilion. "The soldier boy is easiest, damaged goods for my rack, desperate for love." Several guests gasped. Garrett's Marine brothers had to physically restrain 2 of them from advancing on Cassandra. "But here's the real evidence," I continued, producing the insurance documents. "She took out life insurance policies on all 4 of you, without your knowledge, with her as sole beneficiary." The revelation sent shockwaves through the crowd. Maverick, the doctor, understood immediately. "You were planning to, what? Marry us all and then, what?" Cassandra struggled to her feet, mascara streaming in black rivers down her cheeks. "You don't understand. None of you understand what it's like to grow up with nothing, to watch everyone else have everything. So you decided to take everything from everyone else." Garrett's voice was steady but devastating. "You used my mother's ring. You stood in the church where my parents married. You lied to God and everyone here. God doesn't pay bills. God doesn't buy security. You all had everything. Maverick with his doctor money, Sterling with his family fortune, Jackson with his record deal, and you with your farm inheritance. I don't have an inheritance. The farm is my father's. I'm a mechanic at a Toyota dealership." Cassandra's face went white. But you said, the military benefits, the property." "I work for a living. Everything I had, I spent on your ring. The ring you apparently sold." The admission that she had miscalculated Garrett's worth seemed to break her more than being exposed. She'd conned herself. If you're feeling sick watching someone's evil consume them, you're human. But don't look away. Subscribe now. Share this story, because somewhere, someone needs to see that manipulators eventually manipulate themselves into corners they can't escape. Hit that bell. The ending is about to deliver justice you didn't know you needed.
Later, I stood in the same church where Garrett almost married a killer. But this time, the tears streaming down my face were pure joy, and I swear I could feel Eleanor's hand in mine. The morning of Garrett's wedding to Jennifer, his real wedding, I found myself in Eleanor's garden behind the Marin house, talking to the Japanese maple we'd planted for our 35th anniversary. "You would adore her, Ellie," I whispered to the rustling leaves. "She's nothing like Sloane.
She laughs with her whole body. She brings me soup when she thinks I look tired, and she sees you in Garrett's eyes the same way I do. The tree swayed in the ocean breeze, and I could almost hear Eleanor's voice. I know, Harold. I sent her. Mr. Y, Jennifer's voice called from the deck. You're not supposed to see the bride before the ceremony. Old superstitions, I called back, turning around. Good thing I believe in them, she laughed, stepping into the garden in her wedding dress. Simple, elegant, her grandmother's pearl necklace, the only jewelry besides her engagement ring. But I needed to give you something first. She handed me an envelope with my name written in her architect's precise handwriting. Inside was a letter. Dear Harold, Gad, 5 years ago, you saved Garrett from something that would have destroyed him, destroyed both of you. But more than that, you saved me from never meeting the love of my life. Your courage in standing up to Sloan, even when it meant risking your relationship with Garrett, showed me what real family looks like. Today, as I marry your son, I want you to know that you're not losing him. You're gaining a daughter who already loves you like the father she lost too young. The house in Marin isn't too big. It's exactly the right size for all the grandchildren we're planning to give you. Yes, plural. Garrett doesn't know yet. Thank you for protecting what matters. Thank you for showing us that real love stands guard. All my love, Jenny. P.S. Vincent ran my background check again as a wedding gift. Still clean, though he did find my high school detention records. I may have vandalized my ex-boyfriend's car with eggs. Please don't tell Garrett. I was laughing and crying simultaneously as Jennifer hugged me, careful not to wrinkle her dress. Also, she whispered conspiratorially, you should know that Bradley Chin and Marcus Rothschild are both here with their wives. They wanted to support Garrett after everything that happened. They've become good friends. Really? They started a foundation together, the Waverly Victims Fund. It helps people who've been targeted by romance scams. They've helped over 300 people recover assets and press charges. Later, as I walked Garrett down the aisle at St. Ignatius Church, Jennifer had insisted both fathers participate equally. I saw Bradley and Marcus in the third row, both with genuine smiles. Joining us on this journey. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that they are enough, exactly as they are. Remember, the truth might crack your facade, but it will never break your foundation. Until next time, keep building something real.